Good evening and welcome to the 30th edition of the RO Sports Show. We are steadily climbing to number 50, but in the meantime, 3-0 going on tonight. Of course, Raider football had its first game on Friday, so we're going to get into that here in just a minute. In the meantime, want to bring to the desk Ross regular Jeremy McKenzie, RO Sports contributor, and Raider football know-it-all, Dion Cranford. I'm going to have a new nickname for you each week.
All right, that'll work.
But, guys, looking back at Friday's game, of course, we've got some interviews with quarterback Caleb Hood and Coach Brian Till we're going to get to here in just a minute. But let's start with you, Jeremy. What impressed you most about Caleb?
I think Caleb in that game on Friday night, I love his accuracy. I love his decision-making and the way he had the offense so balanced where he was throwing to different receivers, which we rarely have in the history of football, where you had guys stepping up doing what they were supposed to do. But one thing I appreciate Caleb was his leadership.
All right, what about you, Dion? I mean, like you mentioned, he threw to 6 different receivers Friday night, first of all.
Well, and to add to that, since you're always talking about the history of things, he's actually the only second Raider quarterback to throw to 6 different receivers in a game multiple times.
Okay.
So he hit 6 in a game last year, and he's the first one. The other one was Leon Ziegler, who we were talking about earlier. So I mean, he's actually stepping up his game. He looks great as a sophomore. Well, I say stepping up game. I thought he looked great last year, to be honest with you.
He did.
But he's got nerves of steel, man. He just drops back there. Everything's collapsing around him. You know, guys are this close to him, and he's just standing there looking for that guy. And when he finds him, it's just dead on target. I don't know how somebody as young as him can do that, but it's amazing. He's a great quarterback.
And he definitely seemed poised under center. And we actually have an interview that we're going to play from Friday night, and that was one of the first things that I asked him. Starting quarterback Caleb Hood. Now, I know you're a sophomore, but you don't play like a sophomore. But being a 10th grader, you have any butterflies coming out?
No, sir.
So you're pretty used to this atmosphere, right?
Yes, sir.
All right, so you guys were able to move the ball pretty efficiently. I know they took you out in the second half with such a big lead, but how are you guys able to move the ball so quickly?
Well, the defense didn't really make much adjustments, so we just kept doing the same thing, and our coaches put us in a good situation to win.
All right, and I know you guys have a lot of film and stuff to look at, but what do you guys need to work on between now and next week's game against Wake Forest?
We just got to stay focused and keep putting in the work.
All right, so you heard Caleb there talking about their defense didn't really present a lot of obstacles, it seemed like. Is that something you'd agree with, Dion?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we talked about that last week before the game was even played. I really wasn't expecting Reagan to bring much to the table, really on either side of the ball. I mean, no disrespect to them, they're just not a great program, and I wasn't really expecting that. But like I said, we were talking about he hit 6 different receivers. What's even more impressive about that is that his top 2 were out of the game.
Yeah.
So the top 2 receivers didn't even play, and he still hit 6 guys. So I mean, I agree with what Caleb said. I mean, there really wasn't a lot of defensive resistance there, so he pretty much got to do whatever he wanted.
Now, moving away from the quarterback position, anybody else, whether it's in the backfield, a wide receiver, offense, defensive line, defense, special teams, who else impressed you Friday night?
I think that 1-2 combination with Lascires Ellaby and Jaheim Covington, I think that worked out dividends for them, even though that offensive line had situations where they couldn't up holes, where they could have made big runs in that game. But down the road, I can see those 2 could actually be the top 2 running backs in the conference down the road, which is going to, when it comes down to Scotland or Butler or Wake Forest, I think they're going to move the ball very effective.
All right, what do you think, Dion? Besides Caleb, who else impressed you?
Well, like you said, I just can't see a really good Raider team not having at least one Ellerby on it. So, I mean, there's always that. But, you know, you're talking about Caleb Hood being a sophomore. 2 more sophomores that stood out to me was Jacoby Baldwin. I thought he did a fantastic job.
Yes, he did.
And C.J. Tillman, also a great game by him. And it's going to be exciting to have those 3 guys for 3 more years. I mean, my goodness, I mean, they just played like they were veterans on that team, and they just stepped up and just took leadership roles and did a great job. Baldwin caught my attention. I was actually on the visitor sideline for most of the game. I like to get, you know, when I'm taking photographs, I like to have the Richmond side in the background.
Sure.
So, and there were just a couple of plays that he did right in front of me, and I mean, I was just so impressed with his hands, with his abilities to get around the receivers. He actually did some good blocking on running plays. So I think he's going to do a great job in that position. I'm excited to see him going forward.
Yeah, there was one play. Russell and I were also on the sideline. By the way, I want to mention that RO Sports Crew, I think we had like 7 or 8 people out there smothering this game. So, of course, shout out to the RO Sports team. But there was one play where Caleb just threw they put the ball the only place it could have been, and I think it was Jacoby who caught it with like 2 feet right there. They almost ran over Russell. Of course, I said stand your ground because that's when you get the best shot. But it just goes to show you, I mean, again, that's 2 sophomores who come out there and play like they're, you know, light years ahead of that, right? So speaking of all these young players moving forward, we're going to talk about Wake Forest here in just a moment, but looking forward, not only this season but the next couple of seasons, having all these young players, what's that going to mean for the Raiders?
Well, I mean, I'm hoping it can only mean good things. I mean, it seems like the past few years it's been rebuild. Right. You know, everybody that starts graduates and we start over again. You know, I mean, 2 years from now to think we're practically going to have the same team, the same talent, especially in the skill positions. I think that's awesome, and I mean, it could potentially turn one title season into 2 or 3.
Absolutely, and hopefully that's something that we'll see. So we also Friday night got an exclusive interview with head coach Brian Teal. Asked him a few questions about Friday night's game and also looking forward to Wake Forest. Coach Brian Teal, great win, Coach. We just got through talking to your quarterback, Caleb Hood. What impressed you the most about him tonight?
I mean, the poise, the decision making. I mean, whether it's options for him to keep. He ran the ball a lot more tonight than he did. We would have had him do last year. Obviously, the throws. I mean, he was really taking whatever they were giving him, finding the right spot. He was seeing it easily, and just impressive with him as a leader. Never, even when some negative things happen, he never seemed to get down. So just impressive young man.
Now I know we talked to you at halftime about the change on defense. Same question as far as defense. What impressed you the most from that squad?
Just the way they ran into the football. I mean, we missed some things alignment-wise. We missed a few little things, but they ran the ball and kind of overcame those things. So the aggressiveness and running to the football pursuit was big.
Now I know you guys are going to hit the film room here soon. Got a big game coming up against Wake Forest, and I know you guys just had a win. But looking forward, what do you guys need to do to prepare for them?
I mean, the first thing we got to do is be able to break down that wing tee. See, they've had a lot of guys change over. They're going to be reloading. It's a great program, not just a great football team. So the things we got to do is get to the film, break it down, and find out where our matchups are, where our tendencies, and what we've got to do.
And then last question, I've noticed on the helmets, and I believe this is new on the top, is the links.
Waiting for the question.
Yeah. Can you comment about what that's about?
All right, so our leadership group, what they did is we looked at a lot of the pictures, and they're saying, hey, we want to get back to the legacy, and I actually had a lot of folks in the community tell me, hey, last time we won a state championship, we had a stripe on our helmet. Our kids noticed that in the pictures that are in our room down there. Okay. But our big thing has been make your link strong. So our kids then said they want to put their twist on it. Okay. So they put the chain in there on that old school stripe to kind of say, hey, linking the past and the present, together. With us, and so our leadership group came up with that. I thought it was a fantastic idea, so that we did it, and I think it looks great aesthetically, but I think that kind of the message there is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, we really appreciate it. Congratulations on the win.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right, so one thing we heard Coach Teal talk about that we haven't mentioned yet was the defensive side of the ball. Of course, Teal is also the coordinator on that side. Now, they switched from a 4-3 to a 3-4 this year, meaning you've got 3 down linemen and 4 linebackers. So they pretty much swarmed Ronald Reagan's offense, did they not?
Yes, they did. I think the group that stand out in that defense with the linebacker corps. And I seen where Jones came and just swiped that quarterback, just bust that old line up
real quick
and just hit him, because you could hear the reactions like, oh my God, and I could see in his mind, that quarterback mindset from Reagan was like, take me out the game, coach, I want to get back in there no more.
Yeah.
But I think the defense overall, they did pretty good overall, but I think there was some opportunities they did miss because being over aggressive. Because I could have seen where, as the quarterback from Reagan threw the ball, I could have seen where he could have thrown about at least 4 or 5 picks in that game.
So there was one point where we got a safety against us very early. Then we gave up a kick return. Other than that, the defense didn't really give up any points until the second and third strings were in, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think the new defensive formation, like he said, there's some things to work on it, but once it clicks, I think it's going to be way more effective against our stronger opponents. The Wake Forest, the Scotlands, the
Butlers.
I wouldn't even think about Butler, but 71st is going to be a little more pass happy than usual. We've seen. Yeah. So I mean, I think it's going to be good to have that strength, especially down in speed downfield. But all in all, I think the defense did okay. I don't think their opposition was really that strong, but right. They did what they needed to do. So.
Yeah.
So let's look forward to tomorrow night's game, which, by the way, is going to be at 7 o'clock instead of 7:30. So it's going to move up all of the prep time as well for Richmond. Plus, it's going to be on the road against a really, really good team, defending state champion, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
So what does the defense, the offense, special teams, what does everybody need to do to get ready for this number 1 team?
I think overall the team needs to be aggressive and also be consistent of what they need to do in order to be competitive against Wake Forest. And I think if Caleb comes out there, do what he was doing on last week, and even the receivers from the linebacker core, defense, and to the special teams, I think they have a good shot at being Wake Forest.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but Bobby Terry's slated to come back tomorrow night, correct?
I believe so, yes.
All right, so we've got him in the mix now. Same question. What do we need to do to beat Wake Forest?
Well, I mean, one thing, that people have been coming to me and asking me about Wake Forest, how does their quarterback look? How they got that South Carolina-bound receiver on the team. How does he look? And I think those are the wrong questions. So many people are asking about Wake Forest offense. This is a team that has won 32 straight games and has only given up 234 points in that time. That's an average of 7 points a game. This is a team that's only given up 7 points a game in a little over 2 years. That's obviously where the concern is. If our offense does go out there and play well, I think, if Bobby Terry added into the mix, if they execute plays well like they did Friday night, if Caleb has a lot of success hitting his receivers, I think there's a good chance. This Wake Forest team probably isn't as strong as some of the past teams. I know everybody looked at that score Friday night and saw where they beat Millbrook 51-0.
Right.
Millbrook's not the strongest opponent, first of all, and second of all, a lot of people don't know, but when that fourth quarter of that game started, it was only 20-0.
Oh, okay.
They scored 31 points in the fourth quarter when Millbrook was kind of worn down. And also, Wake Forest's first 2 scoring drives, they got stalled and had to settle for field goals. Now, that's both good and bad because their field goal kicker kicked, I made a note of how long his field goal, I think it was 41 and 35 yards, 35-yard field goals on the first 2 drives. If special teams, especially kicking, becomes a deciding factor in this ball game, that could be trouble because Richmond definitely had problems getting those snaps down. And, I want to see them win, but if they lose, I don't want to see them lose by a missed PAT. That would just make for a long drive home.
Yeah.
But Coach Till, after the game was, upset about the special team performance, but seemed to feel like that wasn't something that was consistently seen in practice, thought that it was something he'd clean up. So I'm hoping that's the case. They also had a fumble return for a touchdown in that Millbrook game, and I believe their second string scored like 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, you got to think that's a lot of points of those 51 points that were not scored by their first string offense. So, the good news is our defense has to play well, but I don't think their offense is as strong. Wake Forest, offense is as strong as it's been the past couple of seasons, at least not all around. They do have some skilled players. But we've got to find a way to get through that defense. That defense, I mean, if defense wins championships, Wake Forest is a perfect example of how that's true.
Yeah.
So.
And I spoke to Coach Till in addition to that interview over the weekend and asked him about the same thing, about the PATs. And he said that that was obviously something they were going to and have worked on this week, speeding it up, just taking reps over and over and over to hope to alleviate that. So, again, it sounds like as long as we can play good, clean football, we have as good a chance as anybody at defeating Wake Forest, right?
Right, yes.
So the last thing I asked him before we take a break was about the chain link on the top of their helmets. And he said he was waiting on that question. I don't know if we were the first or the only people to ask him about that, but he said that it's kind of a link to past teams, especially those that have won championships, a link to this team and those two in the future. By the way, we've got I thought of this up, but I'm going to call it corny if you want to, but a Raiders link up hashtag that we're going to throw out there. Maybe we can get it trending. If it does, great. If not, whatever. But how important is it to look at teams in the past and not necessarily compare it to this year's team, but with that year ending in 8 stigma, if you will, hanging over, how important is it to look back at past teams and compare it to this year?
Well, you look at the past teams in the past, while you had guys that had a lot of size, weight, and skill and athleticism. But this one, I think this team is pretty much going to be a team that a lot of people, Richmond as a whole, a lot of people in the state not going to look at. But they're always looking at it where this is Richmond. They're known for their football program throughout the state. They know what they're going to bring, what not have you. But I see a sense where you can put themselves as the underdogs because you will never know if they're going to get further in the playoffs and eventually win the state championship. In which I look at it from the standpoint, if you want to shut everybody up, just win.
That's right, just win. And I guess the same question to you, Dion. As we mentioned, we talked about it last week, the year ending in 8. Till said they're definitely buying into that. But how important is it to link up teams from the past to this year's team and into the future?
I think anytime you can find anything to motivate your team, go for it. I mean, like we talked about Magic, we talked about 8s, we talked about the chain. I mean, anything you can find to really motivate your team to play well. And I think I think Teal's probably better at that than he is coaching football. I mean,
Yeah.
he can motivate. He motivated he motivated those kids to do groundwork at the stadium.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he did.
and they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's just like he just has this way to get these kids to do what he needs them to do. So I mean, yeah, any of that you can use to really motivate them to work harder and to become better athletes and to become better students and to become better people.
Have at it.
Go
right?
for it, yeah.
Absolutely. Well, yeah, Coach Steele's done wonders just in a couple years with the Raider football program. So, of course, we wish them nothing but success tomorrow night. And, of course, I mentioned it a minute ago, but do want to remind people, tomorrow night's game is at 7 o'clock instead of 7:30 up at Wake Forest High School, which is a bit of a trek because it's actually up above Raleigh. But we need to make sure we have plenty of green and gold in the visitor stands tomorrow night to cheer on the Raiders. So, Dion, we appreciate you joining us. Jeremy, you're going to be back here for the next segment. When we come back, we're going to be taking a look at the top 25 for college football, look at some Heisman hopefuls, and also have an update on Ohio State. All that and more when we come back to the RO Sports Show.
At Richmond Community College, we prepare you for a high-skill, high-paying career in a variety of fields. From business to education, engineering, utilities, healthcare, criminal justice, information technology, and human services. At Richmond Community College, we can save you thousands of dollars on tuition through our university transfer programs that provide a seamless transition to universities and colleges throughout North Carolina. At Richmond Community College, we are always developing new courses and programs in response to the communities we serve. We offer day, evening, and online courses, and you can now complete 5 curriculum programs entirely online. At Richmond Community College, we believe in helping you prepare for a better life. Richmond Community College. Local college, big impact.
McNair Auto Sales is the place to buy your pre-owned car, truck, or van. To be the best, it takes big selection, friendly staff, and great pricing. We guarantee a no-hassle buying experience, and financing is available right on site. So come see us today. We're located at 1026 East Broad Avenue in Rockingham. And remember, with over 40 years of experience, you know McNair is the name you can trust.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show. As always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. And we finished up our preseason talk looking at each individual standings as far as the divisions and the conferences. And we also looked at last year's top 4 teams that went to the CFP. So we figured this week, with college football literally right around the corner, we'd take a look at this year's preseason top 25 to start the segment. So Russell's going to pull that up for everybody to take a look at, but I wanted to ask you guys right off the bat here, looking at the top 25, are there any teams that stand out to you, somebody that's perhaps ranked too high or ranked too low? What do you think, Russell?
You know, I'm kind of surprised that UCF isn't ranked a little bit higher. I get that they're not, you know, they're not in the Power 5, but they win the field. They beat Auburn, and, you know, I see Auburn at 9. I feel like UCF should be at least top 15. So that's kind of my surprise low there.
Yeah, that one surprised me a little bit too. And I know they lost their head coach, Scott Frost, in Nebraska, but nonetheless, most of the talent's still there. So
Yeah.
that one surprised me a little bit too. What about you, Jeremy?
I'm going to say 23 ranked Texas is kind of low the way they are, despite being them in a football dominant school. And I would think Texas will at least be number 12 or 13. But also, I'm surprised Auburn is a little too high.
Here's one that actually a group of teams that stuck out to me. And I know we talked about how, or I did anyway, the Big 12 more than likely might be the conference that's going to be on the outside looking in when we come college football playoff time. But I'm noticing there's quite a few teams from the Big 12 on here. However, they're all on the back end of the top 25. And just glancing at it, obviously Oklahoma's up there at the top. I think everybody, for the most part, expects them to be the creme de la creme. But then after that, you've got TCU at 16, West Virginia at 17. You've also got, I'm missing one here, aren't I?
Texas is 23rd. You know, I can't,
yeah, Texas.
Yeah.
I forgot about Texas. Yeah. So, and then depending on which ones you look at, there's also been some other teams that are right there on the outside, like 26 through 30. So that's one of the things that surprised me is there's quite a few teams from the Big 12, but they're all mostly on the back end trying to move up. And of course, as I mentioned,
think that makes sense too because they're going to beat each other up because
They
there's
are.
two divisions. They all fight each other all season. So I mean, the more you lose in your conference to each other like that, the more it's going to back you up.
So, taking a look at the top four. So, obviously, if they didn't play any games and they went straight to the playoffs, right now you'd have Bama, Clemson, Georgia, Wisconsin ahead of Ohio State. Are you okay with that top four, Russell?
Not for me personally. I don't agree with the ACC team being up there in it. Of course, now this is the preseason, so I think they should be there. I think they shouldn't be second. I think should be third. I don't think they would have even beaten Georgia last year.
So you think that Georgia should be ahead of Clemson? What's your beef with Clemson?
I just don't think they're all. I think they're a lot of hype this season,
even though they have the top-ranked defense in the country.
Well, that's arguable. I think that's arguable.
No, that's by the stats, man. Of course, I'm biased because I'm an ACC fan, but you're an SEC fan, so it makes sense that you want Georgia ahead of them.
But you gotta look at and I would look at number 5 Ohio State should be ranked at least number 4.
Yeah, see, that's the one I have a little bit of beef
because
with.
Wisconsin, I would put them in the leagues.
And I also got number
6
place votes as well. I'm not sure. I think maybe 8 first place votes.
See, another one that's surprising me is Miami being as high as they are.
Yeah, they really are.
And I know you've actually got Miami coming out of the ACC, but I think they're a little overranked at number 8. Of course, they've got a lot to prove, and they had a good season starting last year, but then they finished up not very good. I know they had that turnover chain thing, and that was a big to-do for Miami, but I'll be interested to see how they end up coming out of the ACC this year. Now, let's take a look at some Heisman hopefuls. So, we talked about this a couple months ago about how Bryce Love, the running back from Stanford, coming into the season is the front runner for the Heisman. So let's start with you. I think you might have Bryce on your list of Heisman hopeful, right?
Yes, because I think Bryce is running back. He just had a good season, filled some big shoes after the departure of Christian McCaffrey, who went to the draft to my boys, Carolina. And he proved it right where he rushed for over 2,000 yards with 19 touchdowns. So that really tells you that he's subject to have a big season this year.
Yeah. Anybody else on your list?
And also, I have for a quarterback, I got Will Greer from West Virginia, who probably going to be a dark horse and pretty much a good offensive situation. He coming in last year, he had over 3,400 yards with 34 TDs with 12 touchdowns. We'll see if he can repeat that same performance.
Yeah, and he also had one of the top wide receivers in the country, David Sills, to throw to. So what about you, Russell? Who you got on your Heisman hopefuls for this year?
I feel like depending on who wins this quarterback position at Alabama, that's going to be the one that's going to be a Heisman hopeful, and I think that might be Tua. I know I've been saying all preseason that both of them will be sharing the role, but if one of them does win out overall, I think Tua will be, and I think he would be a Heisman hopeful.
What do you know? Russell picked a Bama player. Also, I've got on my list a defensive guy, which, of course, we don't ever see defensive players win the Heisman.
Since Charles Woodson, since 97.
Exactly. So you can see it's been 30 years. Yeah. But I've got Ed Oliver, the defensive tackle from the University of Houston. Now, very rarely do defensive players get one. Even more rarely does a group of 5 team player get the Heisman. But I think this could be a perfect storm. I mean, we did a list last week of the top players, ESPN did rather, and we talked about this, love it or hate it, and they had Ed Oliver as the best player in all of college football. Could be the number 1 draft pick. Of course, when it comes to picking the Heisman, sometimes that doesn't matter, even though we just saw a Heisman winner go number 1 in Baker Mayfield. But I think this could be a situation where Ed Oliver puts enough on the field, puts up enough big stats, in the categories that matter, like tackles and sacks and that sort of thing, to get some Heisman attention. Another player is Khalil Tate, quarterback from Arizona. Now, Kevin Sumlin is the coach there now. I think I mentioned last week. That situation reminds me of what Sumlin had at A&M with Johnny Football, Johnny Manziel. I think he needs to let Tate just go wild this year, see what kind of crazy, ridiculous numbers he could put up.
Let him loose.
And see what he can do. And then finally, I've got Trace McSorley, the quarterback from Penn State. Now, obviously, Saquon Barkley's gone, got drafted to the Giants. So that's a big key missing out of their backfield. Also, their top wide receiver is gone from last year. So McSorley's going to have to pick up that slack. Yeah. But I think he's got enough talent. We could see him in the NFL next year to be able to make up for those losses. And that's a couple of names that I've got on my Heisman hopefuls. So, moving on. Some of the biggest games for the season. You guys want to pick some out?
I've got one that's coming up from the Big Ten. That is Ohio State and Penn State. I think those two are going to be – Ohio State obviously will be trying to go back to the Big Ten championship. But I think Penn State might have something to say about that this year. So I think they could possibly upset Ohio State this year. Also my other big game that I would say this year is Auburn and Georgia. Obviously, Georgia had lost to Auburn last year, and I think Georgia's going to come back and hit them hard.
Yeah, and actually I had Ohio State at Penn State that Week 5 matchup myself. But you could pick several games out of the Big Ten. I believe it's the West that they're all in. I mean, it's those two. Also Michigan State. So those teams are probably going to beat up on one another. But what about you? The biggest games of the season?
I got two of them I'm going to bring up. Is Georgia versus LSU. I think this is going to be a situation where Georgia's pretty much going to come in, do what they're going to do, and LSU, it's going to be a knockout blowout. But I think Georgia will pick up that win. And also, this is probably one of the oldest rivalries I ever known since I've been born, is Michigan versus Notre Dame.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that's, not to interrupt you, but I've got that one. That's Week 1 at Notre Dame. Yeah. And I think it's safe to say that this has pretty big playoff implications, even though it's in Week 1, because if you lose this game, especially if you're Notre Dame, you have no room to lose anymore the rest of the year because you don't have a conference to live in. Yeah. Michigan, not so much, because they'll have other opportunities, like we were just talking about, playing those other teams in their division to make up some ground. A couple more that I've got. Another one in Week 1 is Auburn versus Washington. And I've got Washington in my final CFP picks, which we're going to get to here in just a minute. But I also said that they need to beat Auburn in Week 1 in order to get back and represent the Pac-12. I've got them beating Auburn. Now, I know you said you have Auburn beating them, big surprise, but you also said that they can also have enough time to win out and still make it to the college football playoffs. So this one wouldn't be as important to you.
I don't know how you got that surprise from me cheering Auburn on.
Because it's SEC.
No, I don't. No, it's Bama, SEC. Everybody else in Auburn usually. So well, Tennessee's flopping around there somewhere as well. But no, I mean, I think Auburn, if they win this game, I don't know how they can handle the rest of the season. But I mean, I think if they win out, other than losing, if they lose to Georgia and Alabama only, Washington wins that rest of their season, I think they make a good case for the playoff committee.
Yeah, that could be two teams fighting it out there at the end. One more that I've got here is Clemson at Florida State in Week 9, just to bring the ACC in here real quick. Now, obviously, no matter what you say, Clemson is expected to be in the fight for the college football playoff. Florida State had a down year, obviously, last year. They're looking to rebound, have a new coach in Willie Taggart, who came over from Oregon. But it's still Florida State. They still have a ton of talent. They're still expecting to make a fight over in that side of the ACC and get back to the CFP. So I think this could be a case where I still think, even though it's at Tallahassee, Clemson will win this game, but I think Florida State's going to give them everything they have because being number 1 in the ACC, you have a bullseye on your back. Everybody's going to bring their best against you, and I think that's what we're going to see when they head down to Florida State for that week. So, final thing is before we get to the Ohio State update. So, our final CFP picks. I'm going to do mine first. I've got, in no particular order here, but I've got Clemson, Alabama, Ohio State, and Washington. So, the Big 12 on the outside looking in. What about you, Jeremy?
I got Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State.
So you got 2 SECs getting in. So let's see, that leaves who was your fourth one?
Dang, I just forgot. Clemson, Georgia,
Alabama,
and Ohio State.
All right, so you got the Big 12 missing out and the Pac-12. Okay, that's what I was trying to figure out with the 2 you had on the outside. Who you got, Russ?
Well, in order, number 1, Alabama. Okay. Number 2 is going to be Miami.
Really?
I see them winning out, beating Clemson in the conference. Also got Washington at 3rd and Ohio State 4th.
Well, you better go to Vegas and put some money on that.
All
Miami
4 of those
pick.
guys win their conference titles.
All right, well there you go. So that's our CFP picks for the upcoming season. And then real quick before we go to break, I know everybody's wondering what's going on with Ohio State. We are too. Of course, there's a lot of allegations going around there about what Urban Meyer knew and didn't know about his wide receivers coach, Zach Smith, what happened with domestic violence, that sort of thing. There was a meeting Wednesday morning with Ohio State's Board of Trustees where we were thinking they were going to tell us what's going on with that. Unfortunately, that decision hasn't come down. Now, just to read this real quick, this is from 24/7 Sports. Ohio State's Board of Trustees wants to reinstate Urban Meyer immediately. No surprise there. University President Michael Drake is balking at that and wants Meyer to serve a suspension. Now, Meyer says that he refuses to serve a suspension since he thinks he did nothing wrong. So the first thing that sticks out to me there is they got a butting of heads here, right? You got the Board of Trustees saying that he should be reinstated now. Meyer's saying that he shouldn't have to serve any kind of suspension, but the president's saying that he should. But the one thing I'm noticing is no one's saying to get him fired. So what do you think?
I think a scenario where Coach Meyer is will hit the situation that he's going through. Even though the Board of Trustees wants to reinstate him, but if he was smart, I really would take that suspension and move on from it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you take the suspension, but you know, this is a very, I guess, kind of a gray thing here going on because it's almost like a he said she said type of deal. But I mean, there has been texts received and whatnot, so I mean, I can see where there's some evidence there, but that's kind of supporting the guy who did what he did, but not really Urban Meyer. I mean, look, if the police are already involved with it, I don't really know where Meyer comes into play, and if police have already been involved with that, so I think he just needs to take a suspension and go on.
Yeah, and reading here, over the last 2 weeks, a team of investigators have been looking into whether Meyer properly reported allegations of domestic abuse against Smith back in 2015. Back at the Big Ten Media Days, Meyer denied any knowledge of those allegations against Smith. Of course, shortly after that, Brett McMurphy of ESPN reported that Smith's ex-wife, Courtney, had texted with Urban Meyer's wife, Shelly, about Smith's abusive tendencies. So, again, you're right. This does sound like a lot of he said, she said. I guess those that are on Urban Meyer's side, which, by the way, seems to be most of the university and, of course, a lot of the fans, it's kind of like, what do you want the guy to do? Like, why? It seems like he's more on trial more than Zach Smith is, does it not?
Yeah, it is.
And whether that's fair or not, I don't know, and I'm not one to say. However, on the other flip of the coin, in the environment that we live in now, if something like this happens, if you find out about it, don't you have to immediately fire the guy?
Yeah.
Right? Instead of saying that you didn't know anything about it. I think that's what's going to get him in trouble, if anything, is that at Big Ten Media Day, he said he didn't have any knowledge of it. And, of course, if you lie about something like that, eventually it comes out. The truth does, and it has. And so we'll have to wait and see. Perhaps maybe this time next week we'll know whether he's been fired, suspended, nothing. I don't know, but I agree with you guys that I think maybe he should just take like a 3-game suspension, move on, and let it die out, which I think is, would be best for everybody.
Because Ohio State football program is going to do what it do anyway in his absence.
Yeah. Now, I would say this, that if he gets fired, that may eventually hurt Ohio State football, but they still have the talent, no matter who's coaching it. And I know Urban's one of the top 5, at least, coaches in college football. But again, the players are there. They'll make it work, like you said. So. But that's going to do it for college football talk. And when we come back next week, we're going to start making predictions. So it'll be prediction time for all the big games, including some of the ones I mentioned just a minute ago. And you mentioned Michigan, Notre Dame. We're definitely going to be picking that one. Auburn, Washington, and many, many more. But in the meantime, and in between time, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, we've got plenty of NASCAR news with Russell, and also taking a look at the SummerSlam recap and all the belts that changed hands that night, as well as what's happened on Raw and SmackDown since then. So all that and more when we come back to the RO Sports Show.
At Kyocera, we see your company differently. We see your documents, how they're accessed, what it takes to keep them secure, and how well your workflow is flowing.
Kyocera helps your entire document infrastructure run more efficiently, securely, and cost-effectively.
And what we see is an opportunity to integrate all of it.
And welcome back to the RO Sports Show, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Guys, let's hit the NASCAR circuit. Russell, what we got moving in, moving out of Bristol from this past weekend?
Yeah, we were at Bristol, and Kevin Harvick, no, not Kevin Harvick, did not win this one. That was my pick. I was hoping he win, but
yeah, it's usually Kevin Harvick.
Yeah, I did actually have Logano as my favorite there, but it was not actually Harvick. It was Kurt Busch, his teammate. Got his first win of the season. I believe his 6th or 7th victory at Bristol itself in his career. Chevrolet kind of got the 1-2 there with Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott. Logano finished 4th and rounded out top 5 with Eric Jones. We had a couple of guys up at the front that you don't usually see up there, but they've been kind of going up there. Chase Elliott, Logano battled it out hard in the second stage, finishing it out. Kyle Larson and Ryan Blaney, they had a good run the first stage. So overall, it was a really good race for Bristol, one of the best ones I've seen in a while. And really, the short tracks and these road course races have been so much fun to watch this season. I cannot wait until we get back to the next one.
So, you mentioned Chase Elliott. It seems like we've been seeing a lot of his name popping up lately, right? What's he doing differently now, or if anything?
I think it goes back to Hendrick they obviously they changed out their chassis before Watkins Glen. So it's the part of the car they changed out, and they got a new one, and they now seem like they're running a lot better. Alex Bowman obviously finishing 8th, and Jimmy Johnson 9th. So I mean, those guys are running up pretty high. William Byron, I think he done pretty well last Saturday night as well. But I think Hendrick overall is just picking it up. I mean, playoffs time getting here, getting very close. We're 2 races away from starting it. So I think Hendrick's just figuring out things finally.
So a name that we used to see a lot towards the top, but haven't much lately, is Jimmy Johnson. He's back finishing 9th, so back in the top 10. What was different this week?
He even battled a little bit for a top 5 finish. Him and I want to say Kyle Busch may have kind of had a little bumping each other around, but that's just Bristol. So Jimmy did really good. He wasn't quite there all night long, but towards the end of the race, it was really coming through. So he had a good run that night. Not as well as he wanted it to, I'm sure, but overall, it's pretty good.
Now, Harvick was your pick. He finished 10th, but that's not really going to hurt him looking at the standings, will it?
No, he's still, as far as he's concerned, he's still at the top with 7 wins. I think he's got 40 playoff points, so whenever the playoffs start, he's got 40 points with his name already. So he's going to be good to go when playoffs begin.
All right. Now, a name that we're not seeing on there is Kyle Busch.
Yeah.
However, he may have not been battling these guys, but he was battling somebody.
Yeah, he was battling the fans, in fact. He actually, to start off the day, we had driver introductions. And he comes out, before he comes out, the song, All I Do Is Win started playing.
Okay.
And everybody immediately booed because they knew it was him.
Right.
And he came out on the microphone. He said, "I don't need no introduction," and walked away. This isn't the first time he's kind of done this to the fans at Bristol. A couple of years ago, that kind of happened. Kyle Busch came out, or Rackets Life came out behind him and called him a word that he shouldn't have, 3-letter word. Think about it. But after the driver introductions, literally lap 2 of the race, Kyle Busch spun out. I think he blew a tire. Collected almost half the field with him. So everybody cheered, probably the biggest roar in Bristol in a while. So he got back in the race. He kept going. I think he was determined to show these fans that he could still keep going. So they tore off the back end of us, wasn't flapping all over everywhere, and it kept going. But then he was running good. He actually went down 2 laps, came back up, was actually challenging for the lead at one point. However, he wrecked again. After wrecking, he actually ended up spinning out Martin Truex Jr. by accident. And so I'm sure that made a lot of fans mad there again. And then he wrecked, and of course, he was finally out of the race, and everybody cheered once again. Now, after the race, Kyle Busch finally was leaving the track, and a fan actually provoked him. And this is where everything just went bad for him. And I think the fan kind of put his hands on him, and they kind of had a spat with each other. So overall, it was the fans are just absolutely hating Kyle Busch right now.
So looking back at this, is this more on the fans because they obviously shouldn't do something like that, or is it more on Busch for almost antagonizing them?
I think, all right, first of all, I don't think the fans should have had any business putting their hands on Kyle Busch, no matter how much you hate the guy.
Sure.
He hasn't done anything to hurt anybody. I mean, he spun somebody out, but it's not like he did it intentionally. If you look back at Chicagoland, that's kind of where the hate really picked up at, because he did spin out Kyle Larson, but Larson actually touched him first, so it's kind of, hey, I'm going to get you back for what you did to me. So,
which is part of racing.
Yeah, and Kyle Larson didn't get hurt from it. So I think personally, I think Busch is doing this intentionally to try and build a personality for himself. And honestly, it's working because he finished way back in the 20s somewhere, and he still managed a post-race interview just as much as the top 5 did. So when you're doing that, you're doing something good, regardless if people are booing or cheering you. He's also getting the biggest reaction of the night. So I don't see why he should really change too much of himself. He's wearing the black hat here, and I think it's working out. NASCAR's missing some of these type of characters.
Yeah.
Most of the drivers nowadays are kind of, at the post-race, kind of saying, yeah, we had a good day, and then they pretty much go away, and they don't really say anything else. So I think I was actually hoping to kind of rain on Kyle Busch a little bit tonight, try to balance out the universe here a little bit for myself. But honestly, I can't hate Kyle Busch. He's awesome right now.
Well, you can almost make a case he should be in the WWE.
Yeah.
With this persona that he's put on. And one of the mantras in WWE is whether the crowd is booing you or cheering you, as long as they're doing one of those two things, you're doing your job right. Yep. It's when you come out and they don't make any noise is when it's time to switch jobs. So like you mentioned, a lot of these guys are usually out there like, oh, we had a great day, kudos to everybody else. Kyle's kind of went and did his own thing, and
Yeah.
I think I would make the case, as I'm sure you would, that it's good for NASCAR to have a character out there that's anti-hero, right?
It brings a lot of attention to the sport. You can talk about WWE. Roman Reigns gets the biggest reaction every single night. No matter how much people hate him, they're going to boo him, and it gives WWE to say, hey, look, they're paying attention.
Yeah.
So that's how it is.
Yeah, which, by the way, we're going to talk about more from Reigns and SummerSlam here in a minute. But moving on. So the trucks, actually, let me say this. 2 weeks from Sunday, the NASCAR's going to Darlington. But since they're off this week, we're going to take a look at the Truck Series because their playoffs have began, right?
Yes, they have. Matt Crafton survived Bristol. Johnny Sauter got him another victory this week. Just beat out Stuart Friesen, trying to get his first win of the season. So right now, before the playoffs even began, we've already got some big rivalries kind of starting up. Crafton, he's actually only a couple of points out from the bottom. Of course, he's starting 8th right now in the playoffs, but he's only 8 points out from that cutoff line. And I think he can make that up well. I listened to Media Days for Truck Series, and he was saying that they kind of have to try out these new tires with what NASCAR has done recently. So he's been trying to figure it out with some new notes because they can't use their old notes based on these new tires. So I think they're kind of figuring things out now, and I think they're going to come back and definitely make it at least to the next round. So I think Crafton's got a solid team there. Johnny Sauter and Brett Moffitt, I think those two are going to definitely make it without a doubt. And if I had to choose my final four for Homestead, it's going to be Sauter, Moffitt, Gregson, and Crafton. So I think that would be my final four.
So that's what you're taking. That's your predictions?
Yep.
All right. And last thing here that we didn't necessarily have on our agenda, but I wanted to ask you about because I saw you posted on social media earlier this week. And correct me if I've got this story wrong, but NASCAR is looking at potentially adding some shorter tracks in a couple of years.
Yeah, so 2020 is going to be the end of a 5-year contract deal that NASCAR does with all the tracks. They all do a 5-year contract deal no matter what. So NASCAR is potentially looking to go to some some shorter tracks, and I personally hope for the more road courses as well. But short tracks, they're definitely looking back at it. They're in such a big high demand. And these 1.5 mile tracks, they're cookie cutter tracks. Nobody really likes these races because they're boring. They run just about the same whether you go to Charlotte, Texas, or Las Vegas. And then those are kind of the major ones, Kentucky, Kansas. So, I don't really see a lot of fans wanting those back anymore. I think they want more short tracks. You get races like Bristol, so in Martinsville. I mean, those are fun to watch, beating and banging off each other. Under the lights, everybody loves that type of stuff. So I see NASCAR trying to get back at that.
There you go. Maybe it will incorporate some tracks that haven't been in NASCAR for quite some time. We will see. But that's going to do it for NASCAR and for the Truck Series. So leaving the pavement, hitting the ring, so to speak. So, of course, SummerSlam was this past Sunday. We got plenty to talk about in a short period of time, so we'll try to knock these out as quickly as we can. But let's start at the top of the card. The Raw Tag Team Championship was B Team, which is Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas against the Revival, which is, and I always mess up their names, but Dash Wilder and Scott Dawson, right?
Yep.
So B Team retained, so they're moving on as tag champions. How far do you think they can go? I mean, it's kind of an odd team, right? They started out as the Miztourage.
Yeah, and this happens all the time, though, where you got somebody who comes in and all of a sudden they come up together and they just kind of roll with it. And I think they're going to continue for a little while. They actually encountered the Miz backstage, and Miz trying to regroup the Miztourage again, but they're like, no, we're not doing that. So,
moving on. One match that I was anticipating, and let me know because you watched the whole card, right?
I did not watch the kickoff show, but I did watch the main card.
You watched the main show.
Yeah.
So let me know how this one turned out. But I know that Seth Rollins defeated Dolph Ziggler for the IC belt. Zig came in as the champ. This was one that I was anticipating. So how'd that one turn out?
It went well for Rollins and Dean. I mean, Dean and Drew McIntyre to kind of battle each other a little bit outside the ring, while Rollins and Ziggler kind of fought. It was a pretty good, solid match. Rollins did this awesome move. It was kind of like a reverse super slam. I forgot what you call it. It was so cool how he did it. I don't think there's even a name for it. So he done a pretty awesome move there, and also he won the title.
Yeah, and that's a belt that's now changing hands. So do you think these two continue to battle for a little while?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a rivalry that's going to continue to probably to the end of the year and leading up probably to take it to WrestleMania.
Yeah, we could see, and I'd have no problem with that. Now, SmackDown Tag Team Championship. You had New Day defeating the Bludgeon Brothers, who were the champs, but it was done via disqualification, so the belts didn't actually change hands. However, on Tuesday SmackDown, the New Day were able to become champions. So obviously they're probably going to go down as one of the best tag teams of all time, right?
Yeah, I would say so. By statistics, in my opinion, I don't think they're that exciting nowadays. They were pretty cool when their gimmick first started up, but I mean,
with the trumpet, New Day rocks.
But nowadays, I think they're getting a little stale, and people are not really wanting to see this. They want to see something new from them. I know they're trying to do this pancake thing now instead of the Bootios, but
which they did throw out when I went down to Florence last week. It's
did
different.
Did they feed you one?
No, see, I was so close; they were throwing them way over my head. So
sometimes they'll dump them right on top of you. So you got lucky, I guess.
But the Bludgeon Brothers, I mean, they were champs. Do you expect them to go away? Or you expect them to be right in the hunt?
No. They're gonna be the front runners for the tag team championships, and they might have a rematch clause, which it probably would take Hell in a Cell.
But that might be a while, because from my understanding, I believe Eric Rowan's actually injured.
Okay.
So it might be a while before they actually return back to the ring. But when they do, I think they'll win it.
So Money in the Bank contract match. We all called this when Strowman beat up KO Kevin Owens. However,
I would almost argue that could have been a record timing how fast he did.
Yeah. However, Monday, Strowman comes out. What was it? Finn Balor and Roman Reigns were fighting each other on Raw. Strowman comes out, waits for Roman. Actually ends up beating Balor, even though Strowman coming out kind of threw him off guard. But Strowman hands over the briefcase. They did everything except rang the bell, and then here comes the rest of the Shield. So Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose, and they kept Strowman from cashing in. So where do we go from here? Does Strowman just have to wait it out now?
I think you have to wait it out now to the degree where I can see a scenario Roman Reigns will retain the Universal Championship for a good while, but it's going to come a time where he's subject to get the Shield one by one.
All right.
And when that one by one gets, that's where he's going to get Roman Reigns 1-on-1.
So it seems like it's going to be the Shield versus Strowman. Like he was saying, does Strowman eventually win out?
I would like to see a situation here where Ron fights one at a time throughout the same night. So maybe Braun versus Ambrose, Braun versus
like a gauntlet kind of thing.
Yeah, I think something like that would be really cool.
Yeah, and then I think maybe you'll see a situation where GM Kurt Angle has to come out and say, "All right, you guys can't, tag team on him." However, this is the monster among men. He should be able to take on all three of them.
Yeah,
right? He carries that persona, doesn't he?
And even at SummerSlam, which it was kind of funny to me, really was when Braun Strowman comes out during the Brock and the Reigns match, and Brock pretty much threw that briefcase over across the third Titantron. And he said, "Not today. I'm the champion."
Yeah, and I mean, Braun's come out and said, before we move on real quick, that he's planning on doing it face to face. Like, he's not trying to take advantage of anybody, even though he kind of did on Raw. But moving on, one that I know you've got an opinion on: SmackDown's Women's Championship. Charlotte Flair defeated the champion Carmella and Becky Lynch. So go ahead, lay it out, man.
Well, first of all, this has been a long time coming. Becky Lynch decided after the end of this match that she has had enough of Charlotte, and she's going to take matters in her own hands now. Becky had pretty much beaten the crap out of Charlotte after this match. So, Becky came out Tuesday night and explained why she'd done everything. It was exactly what everybody's been saying. She's tired of being in the shadow of Charlotte. She's tired of being pretty much the redhead stepchild of WWE. She's kind of tired of being that one, it's kind of there. And then she tried to turn a little bit towards the fans and say they weren't really supportive of her, but I don't think the fans are going to buy into that.
I'm with you. I think that was more creative throwing that in there.
Yeah. So, I don't think anybody's going to boo Becky and cheer Charlotte at this point. Obviously, Charlotte did steal an opportunity from Becky, regardless how you look at it. So, I think Becky's in the right here, and I cannot wait till Hell in a Cell, because I think it's going to be an amazing pay-per-view if those two get together.
So, real quick, Charlotte Flair, one of the best women wrestlers of all time?
Yes.
Good pedigree, though.
A good pedigree in this generation, but when we were coming up, Trish Stratus was the best one.
Right. And you say no. Why? Just because it's not Becky?
Flair.
All right. good argument, Russell. All right, so a couple more here. WWE Championship, Samoa Joe defeated AJ Styles, the champion, but it was via disqualification. So again, that belt won't be changing hands. But do you see Samoa Joe getting gold soon?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, I think so too, and maybe even at Hell in a Cell he'll get his opportunity. Obviously, AJ Styles got himself disqualified, so Samoa Joe technically won that match, but by disqualification, AJ got to keep the title. But you don't talk trash about a man's wife and daughter.
I agree.
Samoa Joe had it coming.
He did have it coming. Although I'm with you guys. And,
that was why
one of us may have even picked Samoa Joe to win.
Win
the belt.
I did.
But I think it's just a matter of time, because Samoa Joe's a veteran in this game. He's worn gold before. It wouldn't be anything new for him. And belt that didn't have any gold implications, but was a big match, was The Miz versus Daniel Bryan. The Miz defeated the Yes Guy. What do you think about this one?
I'm gonna say I picked Daniel Bryan to beat The Miz because I think this was a match that Daniel Bryan want to redeem himself for all these times, even from NXT all the way to now. And I think this is going to be a scenario where those two is going to square up once again.
All right.
Well, there's actually some kind of talk saying that Miz actually cheated. Like apparently he grabbed something from his wife and used it.
Brass knuckles or something.
I don't think it was really. I think Miz had the punch to knock out Daniel Bryan. And now it's going to set up for a mixed tag team match between The Miz and Maurice against Daniel Bryan and Brie Bella. So that's going to be interesting to see.
Husband wifey tag team.
Yeah, and I could see this one going to WrestleMania because I'd like to see these two continue and have like a really big match at WrestleMania. We only got a couple more here. United States Championship. Shinsuke Nakamura kept the belt, defeated Jeff Hardy. Now, I know I picked Hardy to win, but what do you think about this match?
I think it was a pretty solid match. I really enjoyed watching these two battle each other out. More Jeff Hardy and Shinsuke. Shinsuke's kind of getting a little stale on me.
Yeah.
But, you know, one thing I liked, though, was Randy Orton coming out at the end of the match. Was going to attack Jeff, but did not. He turned around, left back out. Tuesday night on SmackDown, he came back out, and they had a match. But it got out of hand, and it resulted in Jeff Hardy doing a swanton bomb off top of some equipment in the back. So, it was a lot of fun to watch out. I'm interested to see how this plays out.
Yeah. You think this one continues?
Yeah, I think this continues because I think Jeff Hardy could have had the belt if that swanton bomb that he tried to do at the very end and landed on his back of his neck. Bad move, dude.
Getting a little too over that.
Yeah, sure will, because you better find a new move to do.
I gotta say though, whoever does his makeup for him, that was awesome. His eyes,
really cool.
His eyes
I like
or Tuesday night was crazy.
One of the biggest matches of the night was Ronda Rousey defeating Alexa Bliss to win the Raw's Women's Championship. What do you think about this one, Russell?
Was it really that big? I think we all knew.
It's
this
big
was
because
coming.
it's Rousey, though.
Yeah. Everybody knew this hadn't been coming. Alexa Bliss did not.
I picked Bliss to win.
She didn't stand a chance. I mean, Rousey. You can't choose against her. I mean, she's a UFC fighter, champion. She knows how to get things done. She almost broke Alexa Bliss's arm.
She was in a sling afterwards.
So, you know, Rousey getting it done.
So what do you think? Rousey here to stay?
Yeah, Rousey here to stay because I looked at that match and I looked at pure dominance.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, I don't think Alexa Bliss even get pretty much one or two fists in her. And I think this was like, it's like what Russell said earlier. How much time do you need to beat a person? Because that was just pure dominance.
All right, and then the final one here before we go to break. Universal Championship. Roman Reigns finally, after many times, defeats Brock Lesnar to win the belt. So, is this the end of Brock? Does he finally go away for a while?
Not in. Well, Brock, you know, he tried to get a rematch clause at Hell in a Cell, and Kurt Angle denied that on Raw. So, you know, I think it's going to be a while. Maybe Survivor Series when we see that match happen. But I'm glad to finally see the title being defended every Monday night, as Roman Reigns said he's going to do. At least we get to see it every Monday, so that's good enough for me.
I agree. Now, as far as Brock, I mean, we were all kind of getting tired of seeing this matchup. Maybe that's the reason why Kurt Angle said, not right now, but do we need to see these two fight anymore, or should they just move on?
I think they need to move on and let Roman Reigns find a new rivalry to mess around with until Brock decides to come back.
Yeah, which could be a while, could be next week. Who knows with this guy, so... But that's going to do it for the SummerSlam recap. Of course, do want to let you know the next big major pay-per-view, like the final four of their majors, if you will, is Survivor Series coming up on Sunday, November 18th. So it may seem like it's a while, but that'll be here before you know it. So.
Oh, yeah.
But we're going to take another quick commercial break, last one of the night. When we come back, we're going to finish up the show the same way we always do with our Ross poll. We'll take a look at our big impacts of the week and love it or hate it when we come back to the RO Sports Show.
Hayden Construction has 2 new homes under construction at 2 distinct locations, 125 Crystal Court in Carolina Hills and on Robberdale School Road. Both feature incredible floor plans and distinct features inside and out. Hayden Construction, quality, value, and beauty. Call Jamie Smart at 910-331-5811 or Nicole Hayden at 910-995-0717 today to schedule an appointment. Exit Realty, making dreams a reality.
At Richmond County Hospice, we strive to provide high-quality care to our patients and their families. Whether it's the incredible hospitality at the Haven House or from the comfort of your own home, you can count on hospice to be there for you. We also offer monthly grief support groups, and our chaplain will be there to hold your hand in prayer. Through our amazing staff and our volunteers, hospice has made difficult times easier for our community. Call the number on your screen if you feel that you or your loved one may benefit from our services. Richmond County Hospice. Peace, comfort, dignity.
Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts is all about rustic home decor and gifts. You will always find a variety of unique antiques, vintage, and new items in our shop. Come and see our selection of housewarming, new baby, and wedding gifts. For the man in your life, we have many collectibles, Boker knives, and leather. And ladies love the jewelry, purses, candles, hats, and t-shirts. We also offer a 30-day layaway program. Come and experience shopping at Willow Tree Antiques and Gifts.
Welcome back to the RO Sports Show. As always, brought to you by First Health Orthopedics. Guys, let's end the show the same way we always do. Let's start with our big impacts of the week. Of course, brought to you by Richmond Community College, whose motto is local college, big impact. Russell, who you got this week for your big impact?
I've got Bill Elliott. He's going to be stepping back into the race car for the first time in, I want to say, about 12 years. Obviously, he retired. He's going to be racing in the Xfinity Series race at Road America down in Georgia, so big impact there for him.
All right. What you got, Jeremy?
For my big impact, I got congratulations to the volleyball team from Richmond Senior High School, and also kudos to Savannah Lempley, who had 14 kills over to beat Anson County 3-0.
All right. And my big impact of the week yesterday, or rather on Tuesday, I should say, the Richmond Raider ladies tennis team got their first win of the season. They defeated Purnell Sweat right here in the SAC 8-1. So the only time that Purnell was able to score on us was in the number 3's doubles match. So all the singles won. So congratulations to them on their first win of the season. Now, looking at our Ross poll, which of course you can get in on the conversation every Monday night using the hashtag Ross poll. You can find it on the RO Sports Show's specific Facebook page. And this week we asked you guys, ESPN will not broadcast the national anthem before Monday Night Football games in the 2018 season. Is this a good move by ESPN or not? We gave you the options of yes, it should be televised, or no, avoid the controversy. And you said resoundingly 70% that the national anthem should be televised. So real quick, what do you think about this?
I would say avoid the controversy. I mean, obviously if you have it on there, I mean, people are going to go nuts about players taking the kneel or not. So avoid a controversy. Besides, people are tuning into these games for football, not for. I mean, yeah, national anthem is great to watch, but we're here for football.
Yep.
In that case, we will all be wearing American flag T-shirts watching the football game and the national anthem. So we're here for teams, not for just a national anthem.
All right, what do you think, Jeremy?
I agree with Russell. I think this is. I think avoid the controversy and. Just for the case, and just let's watch football.
I agree 100%. I mean, if you're the NFL, you want this to go away. So the easiest way to do that is to not televise it. Then hopefully the president won't mention it. Then it won't get escalated again.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. Like, before all this started, nobody was paying attention to the national anthem. Nobody's standing up in their living room for the national anthem. So why are you getting that mad and that upset about what these guys are doing? Now, yes, the players are supposed to stay in the locker room, but there's technically nothing stopping them, if they keep that rule, from kneeling during the national anthem and just taking the fine. So all that's going to do is ratchet up this controversy. And the people that say it should be televised, a lot of those are the same ones that will get mad when they kneel for the national anthem, but they're also the same ones that will say, well, there shouldn't be politics in football. Well, you know what? If you don't air the national anthem, that will get rid of all of that.
And preseason or pre-game talk is already long enough as it is. So why don't we cut that down some? Let's actually get back into the game that we actually love, which is football. So.
I agree. So, but again, if you want to get in on the conversation, you can. Each week, Monday night, we put up a different poll. You can find it using the hashtag Ross Poll on the RO Sports Show's Facebook. And again, we do that every week, so make sure to hop in and tell us what you think. Now, time for Love It or Hate It, and we have got a bunch of them, so we're going to run through these really quick. But starting with college basketball, NC State and Kevin Keatts, who just came over from the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, they're working on a new contract to extend Keatts. Love it or hate it?
I love it.
Right?
Love it.
Love it, too. I mean, obviously, they're going to be good. Wilmington was good. Now he's got a Tobacco Road team to work with. Have at it, even though it may come back to bite the Tar Heels. A record-tying 7 double plays, including 5 induced by pitcher Cole Hamels, propelled the Cubs to a win. So that many double plays in a game. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
Love it.
Love it, too, just because you don't see it that often. Steph Curry says he wants to stay with the Golden State Warriors for his entire career. Love it or hate it?
Love it. Go win more championships.
I'm going to say love it because that's loyalty. I like that.
I love it too. It's easy to say loyalty when you're on a dynasty team.
Yeah.
But yeah,
it could change up any year.
It could. I mean, you get hurt or something. But why would you leave? You know, it'd be stupid to leave. Cowboys wide receivers at training camp are using bricks to improve their hand strength. Love it or hate it?
Hate it.
All right.
Hey, there's better ways to do that.
Yeah, there probably are. Although we're talking about it, and I mean, holding bricks would obviously improve your hand strength. So I'll just say love it, just because it's something different. Although they're probably wishing they had Dez back at this point. But Falcons wide receiver Julio Jones and Under Armour are parting ways. Love it or hate it?
I hate it.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to say hate it because I hate it for Julio, and I feel like I don't know what Under Armour's going to do, but, I'm going to say hate it.
Yeah, I hate it for Under Armour, actually, because Julio's already hopping on with Nike. He's already been spotted wearing Air Jordans, so I wouldn't worry too much about Julio. 76ers, the Philadelphia 76ers in the NBA have hired former Duke and WNBA star Lindsey Harding as a full-time scout. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
Right.
Love it.
Love it too. Bring the women in, man. They know as much basketball as some of these guys out there messing stuff up. Hornets. Houston Rockets GM Daryl Morey says that LeBron is the best player in NBA history, quote, by a bit of a big margin. Love it or hate it?
I'm going to say love it.
So you think LeBron's the best of all time?
I'm just it's kind of like a love or hate it type thing, but I'm gonna let him say love it right now because in our generation.
Okay.
I'm gonna say love it for the fact that it keeps this controversy, it keeps this talk going. So I think
it does do that.
Yeah.
I'll say love it too for that kind of same reason. We're always gonna have this debate of Michael versus LeBron. Of course.
That's good for the NBA.
It is, and they played in different eras. I'm not so sure you can even compare the two technically, but nonetheless, it's good banter to go back and forth with. Adrian Peterson signed a 1-year deal with my Washington Redskins. Love it or hate it?
Hate it because you won't get a ring, but thank God for the Redskins. Gotcha.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say love it since it's only 1 year.
I'm gonna say hate it just because I'm sorry, Adrian Peterson's gonna be a Hall of Famer. At one point, he was the top running back in the league, but that ain't 2018. So sorry. Darius Baisley is foregoing. He's actually a top 30 prospect coming out of high school, but he's foregoing college basketball in favor of spending next season in the G League, which is unprecedented. But love it or hate it.
I'm gonna say hate it, man. You need to stay in school and work on your game so NBA teams can look at you.
Yeah, but isn't he doing that anyway? But he'll get paid for it.
Yeah, I'm gonna say.
All right, love it or hate it.
I'm gonna say love it.
I'm gonna say love it too. I think this is different, and I think this could start a domino effect where you see other guys coming out to where it may become a situation where the NCAA says, we might have to start throwing some money at these guys if they decide to go to the G League. They're automatically in the minor leagues of the NBA. They're getting paid. It's not much, but they're still getting paid more than they would in college, and they don't have as many restrictions on them as they will with the NCAA watching over them. So I think it'll be interesting to keep an eye on this. Ronda Rousey already thinking of extending her WWE career. Of course, she just got the win. So what do you think about that? Love it or hate it?
Love it.
All right.
I'm gonna say love it because this is good for WWE. And also, Rousey is kind of wanting. She said on Raw this past night she does not want to be a Brock Lesnar. So if she keeps that up, I'm gonna say love it.
I love it too.
Hall of Famer one day
could be, and I don't think at this point she even needs to worry about going back to UFC. Right?
Mm-hmm. No,
she's kind of past that now. She should stay here, continue this reign, and just get better at being a WWE wrestler. Right?
Yeah.
All right. Joe LaCava, Tiger Woods' caddy, tried paying off a heckler to leave during the PGA Championship. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
This is where I say I LOL that.
Yeah, I think that one's funny. I wonder how much he tried to pay him, because I'd have been like, hey, I know Tiger's got money. How much is it going to cost you? Otherwise, I'm going to keep over here like that.
Let me get a little piece of it.
Isn't there staff that can actually escort these people out of there for?
You would think so, right? Instead of having to pay the guy off. I don't know. Here's one for you, Russell. An anonymous coach rips, quote, overrated Nick Saban for cheating and for Bama's recruiting. Love it or hate it?
I'm going to say hate it. I mean, everybody probably does some wrong things behind closed doors or whatever. But Saban knows what he's doing when it comes to recruiting. He knows how to do it. He's good at it. There's obviously a reason why he has at least top 3 recruiting every single year. So, I'm going to say hate it.
All right, what do you think? Love it or hate it?
I'm going to say hate it because let Coach Saban do what he do because he's a genius. Go Roll Tide.
Here's the thing. I wonder who this coach is. Like, first of all, if you're going to talk smack, be a man and say it publicly.
Yeah.
Second, I think this is one of those things where Saban can be like, they hate us because they ain't us. You know, and that's pretty much what this is. I'm not sure what the cheating part is, but if you don't like Bama's recruiting, if you're a rival coach, go out and recruit better.
Yeah.
I mean,
There you
it's
go.
as simple as that. Justin Verlander earns career win number 200, which is a big deal for the Astros, but he did it against our man Scott Emerson's Oakland A's. But love it or hate it, win number 200.
Love it.
All right.
I'm gonna say love it. Sorry, Scott.
I'm gonna say love it.
Yeah, we're sorry, man.
Sorry, Scott, but
Sorry.
200 wins for a starting pitcher in the Major League Baseball nowadays is crazy, and you don't really see that much. And he'll end up being a first ballot Hall of Famer. A agent confronted LeVar Ball with the news that LiAngelo Ball wasn't realistically getting drafted. Love it or hate it?
I'm gonna hate it.
All right.
Hate it.
I'm going to say love it just because it was LiAngelo's agent that told them that there was a really, really good chance he wasn't going to get drafted. They had to know that was coming, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know LeVar talks a big game about his sons. Personally, I don't think Lonzo's that good either, but that's just my opinion.
LeBron gonna make him good next year.
Oh, that's true, but LeBron makes everybody better. He'd make the three of us playing with him better. But LiAngelo is just not that good. I mean, he's playing in Lithuania. You know, I don't think that he should have had pipe dreams that he was going to end up in the NBA, and I think the agent was just trying to bring him back down to earth.
Yeah.
NFL players are just as upset about these new tackling rules as everybody else. Love it or hate it?
I'm gonna say hate it.
All right.
I'm kind of going to say love it because the players are wanting to group together about this. You know, if they're going to hate it, I think that's kind of what it goes to. It's kind of like, you know, I don't know, I'd say love it.
I'm going to say love it that they're upset as we are, because if you guys have watched any of the NFL preseason games, you can see that the refs are being real ticky-tacky when it comes to what constitutes helmet-to-helmet contact and what a tackle is. Perhaps some of that will drop off once we start the regular season. Maybe they're just trying it out to see how it plays.
But you got to think, too, I mean, the referees, they're new to this as well. They got to learn this just as much as the players and
they are.
coaches.
That's why I'm thinking maybe it will tail off some once we start the regular season. But it's to the point where it's like, how are these guys supposed to tackle somebody? You know, because I've talked about this before. When a running back runs the ball or a receiver catches the ball, I guarantee you their coaches on offense are telling them to lower their head, first of all, because that's just what you do. It's your instinct to do that. Second of all, when you do that, you put yourself in a position for the defensive guy to hit you helmet to helmet. They get a penalty. Of course, in college, you get fined or kicked out or whatever.
Yeah.
So they need to figure out before the first game starts in the regular season, what exactly constitutes a tackle, because obviously the players are upset. It's going to stop the game more often, you know, than it already does, which makes the game longer. Fans don't want to see that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
And then finally, Sister Mary Jo Sobiek of Marian Catholic High School throws a perfect first pitch for the Chicago White Sox. Love it or hate it?
Love it.
Love it.
I love it too. And I watched this. They need to put her in the rotation.
Yeah.
So, Scott, if you're looking for another pitcher for the Oakland A's, go look up Sister Mary Jo Sobiek, and she could be your next ace moving down the line, even though she is probably 80 years old. But whatever. If you can throw a good pitch, you can throw a good pitch. But that's going to do it for this edition of the RO Sports Show. 30th edition. Can you guys believe it?
Yes.
We're 30 through. So
30
on our way to
weeks.
50, which will be what? Gold?
Yeah.
We've already done silver. 30th can be what? Paper? I don't know. But anyway, we really appreciate everybody watching and listening. Of course, so many ways you can do that across all of the Richmond Observer platforms. They are all free, so you got no excuse if you can't watch us or listen to us. But make sure to hit us back right next week, 5:30 on Thursdays. Of course, Richmond Raider football, as a reminder, tomorrow night, 7 o'clock up at Wake Forest High School. Go Green and Gold. And for Jeremy McKenzie, Russell Parker, I'm Matt Harrelson. We'll see you right back here next week.